Hello everyone, my name is Sorin Sbarnea, and I work for Red Hat as a principal software engineer, and I am the team lead of Ansible DevTools. You already know from Ganesh talk something about the Ansible DevTools, but now I'm going to give you some more details, especially regarding the command line part of the tools. Because few people asked about which are the Ansible DevTools components and so on, I will introduce something that was not direct, that is directly from our documentation. Okay, I think that this should help you. I hope it's big enough. So we have more than 15 components that are covered by our team. The first of them was Ansible-lint, created I think 4 or 5 years ago, when it was adopted by Ansible teams, DevTools team, and when the team was created, and with Molecule shortly after. But the list of tools did grow with Ansible Navigator, Talks Ansible, PyTest Ansible, ansible-creator, Ansible Dev Environment, which you will hear about it in my presentation, and the Ansible DevTools package itself, which should be seen as a container for all the other tools, because it doesn't do much other than putting everything together and giving you the ability to install all at once instead of having to remember all the packages and so on. Also, it does have the big advantage of allowing you to install versions that we know and tested to be compatible between them, because there are dependencies between these tools. Also, it's worth mentioning that Ansible DevTools Python package also it's packaged as an execution environment at the same time. So when one is published, we also publish an execution environment with exactly the same version of the tools inside. If you look at the graph, you'll see the green box. Few things changed since we created this page. Now this is basically created at the same time as the Ansible DevTools package, and even the code for generating the execution environment is there. So we have a single release pipeline. This is very useful because it keeps, let's say, the execution environment more closer to your own installation, let's say. Now, let me go back to the slide. So, I'm going to talk about lots of problems that we have as developers, and when you create Ansible content, you count as a developer. I'll have a few demos where I'll try to show you how to use the tools, at least as an introduction. If any time someone has some questions, please raise a hand and I will try to answer the questions, because there is a lot of content, so it should be easier to have a few sessions for the questions. So one of the most common problems when develop Ansible content, it's about hidden dependencies and security risks. Version compatibility being one of them, I would say. Or environment-specific problems. By environment-specific problems, I refer to stuff like you are testing with a specific, let's say, operating system, but in production you deploy to something that is a little bit different, or even more different. Or you test manually local on a Mac, and you deploy on Ubuntu. Guess what happens? Okay, this is a very simple example of a simple Ansible task where I think most of the people from the room will know that, yes, I need the community crypto collection to have it installed to work. But guess what? You install the community crypto collection and you try to run the module. And in some cases, you might get some errors about the missing Python package that cannot be imported. Because when you install the collection, the Python dependencies are not installed. Now, if you are using execution environments and you have this declared as a dependency, when you build the execution environment, these dependencies are installed. But this is happening only with execution environments. If you are outside and you are just using the command line tools, this is not happening when you use Ansible Galaxy to install the tools. But we'll see later that we have some solutions for this. Now, yes, this is basically the main point of using the development tools, is to improve the quality of the code and not to test on production. And tomorrow talk is going to be more about this CI and how to do this testing on CI, because testing locally is only the first part. So, regarding collection development, probably the most important part that I want to mention here is that when you go to production, you almost never are not the same. You are not going to be the person maintaining the same content. So you need to always plan for your content to be easy to be tested and maintained by someone else. And if you do not add the tests, and when I refer to test both local and CI, you'll end up with really big problems. Now, I already presented you the maybe too many tools that we have, but there is a reason for the creation of each of them. So now, I showed you the Ansible Developer Toolkit. Now, how is the relationship regarding the VSCode extension? Because some people ask, and the VSCode extension was not listed in the graph that I showed you previously, because it's a very different code base. It does rely on the Python Ansible Development Toolkit, but it is a set of few TypeScript-based projects which have a different test and release pipeline, but always tested against the Ansible DevTools, so that is closely related. And one very important aspect regarding Ansible Development Tools is that now they are included in AAP, in Ansible Automation Platform. So Red Hat customers that are getting the AAP subscriptions do get full support for the ADT tools. This is something new from last year. One important aspect, when you install ADT, it also installs Ansible Core. It does not install Ansible Python package, the one with all the collections. So Ansible Core, it is a dependency, but not the Ansible community package. Obviously, you can install it, there is no problem in it, but it's like there is no direct link. And there are reasons for this, because when you test, the big Ansible community package is maybe too big for many people. There is too much content there and too many things, and you might not need. Most of the time, most of the people do only need a set of collections for their automation, not like 50 packages. Okay, now, one thing that it's important and many people do not know about is that it is easier to test Ansible content using Python virtual environments. This was advertised and recommended for Python developers for a very long time, but it is less known for Ansible and for people creating Ansible content. And I will show you why with some examples. And regarding, we have one specific tool that was created for this, which is sorting the problem that I showed you before regarding installing a collection with Python dependencies. So creating a directory for the new collection, like I'm a goodies, the one that I had here, you enter it, and after this you create the virtual environment. Now, in my example, I use a tool called UV, which is it's a, let's say, much faster alternative to Python VMF, but you get the same result using Python minus MVF, and it will create a virtual environment named .vm. There is something magic about this name. This is the default name that is also recognized by VSCode. It's like if you open a project that has a folder that is a virtual environment like this, VSCode will know to activate this Python virtual environment and use it automatically. You don't need to configure anything to it. There are two folders recognized, the .vm and vm. After you have this, you can install inside Ansible DevTools, right, using the pip command. And now, first thing that you can test is you can run ADT command. ADT is the executable name for Ansible DevTools to show exactly what you have installed on your machine. In my case here, probably you see that I got lots of them installed from source because I work on them. Usually you'll see stable versions of them, not the one with .dev at the end. And also this shows which are the main dependencies of the package. Most of them are maintained by us, but there are few exceptions like Ansible Core and Ansible Builder. The other ones are maintained by our team. You will spot here something called Ansible Dev Environment. This is the tool I wanted to tell you about that installs the dependencies. Now, some magic things while you are inside the virtual environment. Show you, I think that in this slide, we activated the virtual environment. The moment when you activate the virtual environment, your prompt does change to mention you the name of the virtual environment. Keep this in mind, because these are commands that you run from inside the virtual environment. And now, let's show how Ansible behaves a little bit different when it is inside the virtual environment. Because if you look now with Ansible ---- version, it will tell you where it loads different content from. And it does look inside the virtual environment first to load modules, plugins, including collections. And this means that, I'll skip for this one. Okay. So where are, okay. I will show you here. We will create a collection, the one that I created the directory for, and using ansible-creator init collection and the name of the collection. This will create a bunch of files that you, with everything you need in order to be able to compile the collection and run the tools on it. And the next step would be to make this collection available and be able to test it without having to build, install it, run, and so on. You want to install from source, basically, and be able to make any change and run again and see the results. And this is possible because you do ADE install -e. If you use pip a lot, probably you already know that it's the same syntax. Instead of pip, you have ADE. And what it does install the collection with all the dependencies, Python, and all the also other sub like roles or collections, inside the virtual environment. It does not install them inside your user home directory. Because usually if you do Ansible Galaxy install, by default it will go to user home directory. In fact, this command will complain if you have other content in user home directory, and it will tell you that this is my shadow the content that you are testing. You want to run everything isolated, right? Because you want to have consistent results if you run on your machine and on CI. Not that works on my machine, but it doesn't work on other. And you see, by default, it did install our collection, but also Ansible Utils. Giving the reason why Ansible Utils is installed is because it is in the template of the default collection creation. This is why. And you can run it again and so on. And if you run Ansible Galaxy collection list, something magic will happen. You will see that you have it installed and it is inside the virtual environment. And Ansible can find it. Even if this path is not, if you look at the, with Ansible config and you look at the list of Ansible collection path, this path is not there. Because this path is, let's say, it is used by Ansible, but it is not exposed directly. It is always used and has priority upon the other ones that you can configure. But if you have content here, it will be used. And the best part about it, this is inside your project. It's like if you remove this project from your disk, everything goes away. And the collection that is installed there is not going to pollute your user environment. Think about it, it's like you want to make a contribution to AWS collection, right? And you clone it, you make some changes, you test them, and maybe you make a pull request to contribute your changes, right? But maybe you have other playbooks and other content that relies on AWS that need a different version. So if you install it in your user home directory, when you try to run the other stuff, probably you use the wrong versions of these tools. So it's very important to isolate your code, your Ansible content, from other stuff that can be on your machine. Now, there are other cool stuff with Ansible, with the ADE command, because it also has a check command, where it can tell you what is missing. It's at the same time, it is designed to match PIP features. PIP also have a check command that does similar things, but this one also reports you about roles, collections, and Python modules. There is also an AD list command, but you can see the difference between the two commands here. Because this is Ansible Galaxy that is listing the collections, right? And if you want, you can also run Ansible Galaxy role list to see the list of roles that are installed. But there is another option. You can run ADE list and you get a little bit more information. Not to mention that if you have roles, it will also list the roles. So it is an alternative, and also it's less letters to type. Now, the reality is that AD behind, it does use Ansible Galaxy and also other components of Ansible in order to implement its features. But it does expose them, we think, in a more friendly way that is making the developer, achieve his goals much faster. And especially with details like telling you that this is editable, so you just edit the code there. It's not installed in a static location. Here I have a few examples of other commands and differences, like you can use Ansible doc to list the modules that are inside your collection, and this is from the default template. So if you run the same commands on your machine, you will get the same thing. it's a very good head start when you do not have an already existing collection. And most of the people struggle when you have to create the first module, the first playbook, the first role. It's much easier once you have some of them, and this is why we have the structure. Now, if you do not use ADE and a virtual environment and install the collection as editable, you will not be able to run a command like ansible doc list a collection which you just created, right? Maybe you create another role, you will have to package it, install it, run Ansible for Ansible to be able to find it. But when it is installed like this, you just create one Python file and you run this command again, and Ansible will show the new module that you just created. You don't have to install, because it is editable. So it's just basically your own folder. Yes, the other example is just to show the documentation for the specific module. Also, you can do the same using Ansible Navigator. It's basically the same command, but in Ansible Navigator, where it gives you, let's say, a more visual way of reading the documentation for a module. Okay, this is, does anyone have any questions regarding the ADE and the creation of a collection? Yes, please.
So what you mentioned with collections being installed into the virtual environment,
yes.
Is it also possible to install roles into the account work?
Yes, it is possible. So not only collections, but you can also do it with roles. Okay, so on second part is about creating a playbook project. The first one was an example about creating a collection project. A playbook project basically is a project with playbooks. It's the same tool, ansible-creator, and you just run ansible-creator init playbook and the name of the collection. This is something that will go away at some point, because what it does create the project structure, but also it does create this collection inside your project. It's like it's bootstrapping a collection that is just inside, just because usually if you want to create a role or something like this, you might want to stick it somewhere. And if you use a collection for this, it's much easier, especially long term, because you might want to, yes?
Sorin, can you give an example, like what is going to go away, you said? Like the exact path, like you just said that something, yeah, creator.
I will show you. In fact, I can show you directly on this because I have. So in this example, I just created an empty folder. I entered the folder. I use git init just to make it a git repository, and I run the command, right? And now let me show you what we have on this. So this is for my place, right? It's very similar with. Okay, we have
and
here.
It's a bigger font.
Yes. It is better?
Yes.
Okay, and now let's do a tree here in my place. Okay, this is quite, maybe ls minus 1. It should be better. Okay. So here you can see the site YAML, which is a playbook. It's the main playbook of the project, and few other playbooks like Linux playbook, network playbook. The file is something different. You already remember from the next presentation. Ansible Navigator is the configuration for Ansible Navigator. It's just a set of defaults that make more sense for developing playbooks. Inventory folder where you have a sample inventory. And collections. And inside collections, let me see. Collections, Ansible collections. And here, we have the Acme, right? Which is the new collection that we created. And if I do a tree inside this one, you see that it's an almost empty collection, right? It only have one role called run in it, but and probably it's one that only displays hello world, but it is enough just to know where to put your content. It is very important to use one of the supported project formats, because either collection or playbook, because these are recognized by different Ansible tools. So if you do not use the official layouts, you might have to work a lot, like configuring different things in Ansible config, and you might discover that some of the tools do not work the way you would hope they would work. But if you go for standard, they will work, because this is how we test. It's like, this is number one. The other one is like, you go off script, and when you go off script, you might encounter some surprises. Okay, let's see. Yes, and this was an example of just running the playbook. Obviously that you can use the VSCode extensions, because all the features that I showed you here do have a correspondent on VSCode UI interface. The UI interface on VSCode is using the same tools. So basically what it does is, like, the forms is generating the command lines, and they are executed, producing the same results. And you can even see the commands and the log window on VSCode. But my presentation was more to focus on understanding the command line, because most of the time somehow we ended up doing stuff from the command line. Okay, I already showed connection. Ansible Navigator. You already know that Ansible Navigator is like a text user interface that provides a more friendly way of interacting with Ansible and different commands. Very useful also if you do not have VS Code available. Let's say if you are in a terminal and you work on something remote, maybe VS Code is not always accessible. There are some, now I don't know how many people are using a Mac at their laptop. Okay, so I would say a third, something like this. Okay, in this case, I suppose that sometimes you've seen this problem if you use Navigator. Sometimes, some of you. The container engine can cause some problems, especially on Mac, I would say, or Windows. I didn't ask about who is using Windows here, probably not too many, but the idea is that I have only one hint here. It's like, if you see this error on the screen from Navigator and you are on a Mac, almost for sure your container engine is not working properly. Either not working at all, or it has a broken setup. And in most cases, resetting the pod Docker machine solves the problem. Just as a hint. Also, you have another option. It's like, if you want to configure the Ansible Navigator not to use execution environments, which are used by default, you can change its configuration and disable the use of execution environments. And even if you disable it, from the command line, you can enable it back. So it's like, you can switch between the two, because each of them has its own advantages. You have, yes, command line, and command line always take precedence over the configuration file. This basically is displaying the same thing as I showed you previously in the slides. Ansible config is showing you the Ansible configuration. It is very useful because it's showing you the computed Ansible configuration, the one that is determined by Ansible at runtime. It's based on environment variables you might have defined, and configuration files. And there are two ways. For most of the Ansible Navigator commands can be run in two modes. The visual way, like with graphical interface, where you can use page up, page down for a lot of content, or you can use the standard output method, where it behaves like a normal terminal application, where you get all the content as text. Based on your needs, you might want to use one or another. If you run it on CI, where you do not have a TTI, like interactive terminal, the standard output mode is enabled by default. It's like, okay. Okay, I need to mention a few things regarding execution environments. Because, so, the Ansible DevTools team is publishing the community Ansible DevTools package every time we update Ansible DevTools. There is also another execution environment that is maintained by the community, which is called Community EE Minimal. It has less content than the one with Ansible DevTools. The Ansible DevTools has Ansible, a set of packages. I will show you, I have, I think, in the next slide, which ones are included, a few collections, and all the Ansible DevTools. And in addition to this, there is also a bunch of command line utilities that are very useful for development that might not be really needed in production. So this is not supposed to be used in production. Production is more used for development, like JQ command line, including few Vim and other tools for debugging and just to have htop, just so you would waste less time having to install stuff that as a developer you might need. Yeah, you can list the images that were already downloaded with this command. So, I was telling you about what we already include in the default Ansible DevTools execution environment. These are the Ansible collections that are included. As you can see, it's a very limited list of them. And we try to keep the list small, because if we put more of them, the container will become bigger. And also, you might get into other testing problems, like forgetting to declare your dependency in your collection. It's like you are using it, it happens to be installed there, but if you use it, declare it, right? And our tooling is able to detect that something is missing, but if something is already in because external sources, you might have a surprise later. And obviously, if you want to save time, you can build your own execution environments directly on top of the minimal one, or on the Ansible DevTools one, or even the rel one, the one that came with AAP, and install your extra stuff. So you will not have to install them all the time. If you build your own, you publish it to a location where it can be used by your CI and your colleagues, and you use this as a reference. Okay, an example of using the Ansible Navigator. Custom one. Questions? Yes.
How does execution environment interact with molecule, because it's in container?
With
molecule.
Okay, so it's not that it does interact, but molecule is inside the execution Ansible DevTools execution environment. You have molecule. So when you are inside the container, you already have molecule installed, and also you have your own code base mounted, right, with a volume mount. So molecule is able to find all the content that you have.
Yeah, but is it able to spawn other containers? Because that's the most...
This depends on how you start it. So, yes, it is possible, but you need to be careful when you start the container in order to expose the socket, because some people might not want to do this for security reasons, right? Because they want, okay, you run the container and this container can start other container on my machine. Yeah. But it is possible because it's one of, let's say, the most common use cases when using a molecule, I would say. I think most people using molecule are using one of the two container engines because it's much easier.
Because you need that if you want multiple networks or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, I will try to mention a few things about molecule, but I'll not go very deep because I don't. How many people here used molecule? And you are using in production? Okay, so I guess 10%, 15, something like this. Okay, so what is molecule? So I need to give some details in this case. Molecule is a testing framework for functional and integration testing, and it is based on Ansible and is using Ansible playbooks to execute tests of Ansible content. So basically, you create other set of playbooks with specific names, which are run. All of them are grouped in scenarios. And usually a scenario looks like you have the part of provisioning the resources, installing dependencies, running the test, doing the converge step, which would be like testing that you got the outcomes that you're looking for, and at the end the destroy part where you free the resources. And molecule helps you a lot creating this and managing them because you do not have to think too much about all the steps. You just tell it to create a scenario, create the playbooks for you, and you just put the code that you want to run there. And it has a lot of plugins. Most popular use cases are to use Docker and Podman and use containers, and it can do this quite well because it does start the containers, it does install stuff in it, and runs the code from there. But there are also plugins for using all the cloud providers. So basically, Molecule can do whatever Ansible can do. And the best part, you don't need to learn a new language because all of them are playbooks. Okay. Ansible-lint. Who does not know, or let me put it this way, who never run Ansible-lint on Ansible content? Okay, so this makes my life much easier because it means that almost everyone knows what Ansible-lint does. Now, I will dare to ask who didn't have problems with Ansible-lint. Didn't have problems. Because it's an opinionated tool. It is, I think, probably also the most popular one because it can be annoying, but it's annoying in a good way because it does prevent you from wasting time, much later. All the rules were added to it in order to prevent something bad happening when you run in production or maybe later, like when something is deprecated. Warnings that, let's say, most people do ignore, especially on CI. It's like if it's failing, someone will look at it, hopefully. But if it's passing, how many people are reading the logs on a successful CI job? Okay, yeah, good. Yes, sometimes you have to do it and you discover ugly things, right? Like, you have a skip there that didn't run any tests for 2 months. It was a very stable CI that did nothing. Yes, you need to be very careful about stuff like this, and Ansible-lint can help with things like this that you might not spot initially. This does not mean that all of them are created equal. So, and this is why it has also a lot of options to disable some of the stuff. And I say that especially if you are new to Ansible, or you start with something that is more like you're not sure that it will go into production or where it will go into production, I'll say that maybe you don't want to run Ansible-lint right away. You just want to do some testing, to do a POC, right? But the next step, when the POC works and you are asked, okay, this needs to become production code and usable, this is probably when you want to introduce the linter, because linter is also the first step that would protect, and also the easiest one to implement and maintain compared with the other type of testing. Who has some questions about the linter? Oh, okay. Yes.
Just a question about linting. So we know what to lint, we know what to fix. Is there anything on the roadmap that you plan to implement, like markdown linting, you have YAML linting, so in order to fix that, what it discovers?
Okay, so I'm not sure how many people are using the auto-fix feature in lint, because it's relatively new, I think probably 2 years or something like this. Linter already has the ability to fix lots of common problems, including like upgrading YAML syntax from YAML 1.0 to 1.1, and few other stuff like common, let's say, errors. It cannot fix everything because there are a lot of stuff where a human needs to make an informed decision. You cannot rely on a clear algorithm to provide a fix. Yes, we do plan to add some extra stuff, and somehow you guessed, let's say, linting markdown is high on the list. Because we already have YAML-lint, because it's also used inside Ansible-lint, but also we have markdown as part of the collection. You have the README. And maintaining lots of tools and linters, we do this because we have probably between 20 and 30 linters on our code repositories, and we use pre-commit for this. And if anyone doesn't know about pre-commit tool, I'm not referring to git pre-commit hook. I'm referring to the tool. The hook is something a little bit different. Ping me and I can give you some more details. Ansible-lint can be run by pre-commit also. It's one way of using it. Yes, running markdown linter as part of lint, yes, it's something we want to do. Just that we didn't have the time. It's like, but if someone from the community would try to make a contribution and add this, be sure that I will review it. And it has very good chances of getting in. So it's not that we didn't want, it was just that priorities. And I would say that most of the rules and stuff that were implemented were coming from community, from different teams, people, companies. It's like, and in some cases they did have like custom lint rules that they were using in-house. And at some point they asked us about either getting them in, if it would make sense or not. In some cases it didn't, but in many cases, probably more than 50, I would say 50%, it did make sense, maybe with small tunes, right, on them. And they were contributed and they become part of the tool, so you have less code to maintain, because a single linting rule and so on does not require much extra maintenance if it's inside the linter, because it already have all the tests and it will not break. But if you have it standalone, the product does change. The internal, sometimes you might end up having to make some changes to make it work with the new one. So other ideas for stuff that can be checked by Ansible-lint, just let us know. It's like I will be more than happy to add more to it and reduce the number of different tools that we run on our repositories.
Sorry.
Yes.
So, as you said, that reducing the number of different tools, what we have now, there are many ways I can start a collection, like Galaxy Init, Creator and VSCode. So, which you think is the correct way of doing it now, number one, and secondly, why lint and VSCode, this combination, like when I'm using the creator in VSCode, why it is so slow?
Ooh. I do not know exactly to give you an answer regarding slow, because I know some things that could make it slow, but I need to see in a particular case, because this, I would say there are multiple reasons. It shouldn't be too slow, so it shouldn't. But it can be something that might be specific to your use case. For example, I had a case like this yesterday when I was trying some stuff, and I discovered that because I did have a collection folder in my project with Ansible community inside, and I run Ansible-lint in my current project. The current project contained Ansible community. You don't want to lint Ansible community as a whole, because it will take probably 5 minutes on a very powerful laptop.
Yes.
And you'll get lots of results. We'll work on this with the community team to lower the number, but still, it will take a long time because it's a huge amount of code. So it was just because the tool was not configured to ignore this folder, because it assumed it was part of your code base. It was inside. So the default behavior of the linter is to investigate all files that are tracked by Git, or to be more precise, that are not ignored by Git. So you have different options. If you are in Git, you just add the folder, the problematic folder, to git ignore, and Ansible-lint will ignore it. Or if you don't want to do this, or maybe you don't have Git, you can add the configuration line, and I think I can even show you, because I think I have it here. It's a simple line of config. Let's see. I'm not sure if it's in, probably in this folder. Yes, exclude paths, and this is what I had to do in order to make it run fast, right? Yes, I'll make a patch for this, because I discovered this happened to me after I used Ansible-creator init playbook project. I had the project and I ran Ansible-lint on it, and I was looking at it. It's like, wait, I'm looking at my watch. My presentation has to start. And it was a small mistake. It was just because the place where we did install the community packages, which was not really my own code base, was there. And it's very easy to fix it, because we can change the templates to include it here. So it's like, okay, if by default this is excluded, you'll get a good performance out of it. Okay, other questions, please? Because I do not have other. Yes, I think this is, yeah, almost done. It's like almost done. Okay. Do not, yeah, please.
That was good.
Yes.
Oh, right. So we're using Bitwarden for managing the Ansible Vault secrets.
Okay.
I know that Bitwarden is not like necessarily optimized for speed and for like storing secrets and stuff, which is basically have a vault password file command that is a bash script and it does pw get password blah blah blah.
Okay.
And I also have the issue that the other person mentioned with the Ansible-lint being slow, and I suspect it's because it tries to fetch the password and that takes a while. So I guess I've already excluded secret.yaml from the linting, but I guess my question is, does Ansible-lint necessarily need access to the vault? Can we run it without?
Okay, so there is no single answer here. You have two approaches. Each of them is its own. It's like you either give access to your secrets and you get a better.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question was, I'm using a password manager, so unlocking the secrets of Ansible takes extra time, and this slows down and makes Ansible-lint harder to run or slower. And the answer for this is you have two options. You either exclude your vault files, your secrets from linting, and you might create some fake ones that are not do not have password, just to allow the linter to run. So this is one approach. And the other one is to give access to the linter, to the secrets, and let it run. You should be able to find some tricks to make it faster, but I do not know exactly the details. Maybe we can talk after to get more. I don't know exactly what is the footprint of unlocking, because we run on multiple threads, Ansible, based on the number of CPUs, and if each of them use Bitwarden to unblocking get the secrets, might slow down. But maybe we can do something to optimize there.
But can't you mock Bitwarden in Ansible? Because you can do this with some things. I guess there is a mock for Zool secrets or something like that.
Yes, but think about this. You don't know what you need to mock. So if you start, you can assume that anything that is not defined, put a value for it. But you might fail to find some real problems. So ideally, you want to give it access to the secrets because it provides a better quality answer. So yeah.
I had a question. Is there a good or any decent way to reuse molecular scenarios, basically content in it? Because for instance, we want to test like different variables or like a slightly different inventories, but the whole rest content is kind of the same. But then we need to replicate whole molecule YAML, which is big and doesn't make sense for like.
Do you want to have different scenarios for this, or you could use, let's say, a loop inside an existing scenario to test all of them? This would be a question.
Loop where?
You have playbooks. For all of them, you can create loops inside, right, of tasks.
Well, it would be nice, to see the difference inside, so you have different CI jobs, kind of.
So if you also want to have different CI jobs,
so, like a very simple instance, you have you deploy like MySQL or something with TLS and without TLS support.
not easily right now. But I think that I have some ideas, because if these are playbooks, it means that you can trigger the metrics based on variables that you're passing to these, like Ansible variables that you pass. It's like you have SSL on off, right?
Yes.
So you can use the same scenario to test both. The only difference is that right now you would have to remember to, okay, this scenario needs to be called with these parameters and the other ones, right? And when you do a, let's say, molecule list, you do not see that this scenario has two ways of testing. But I think that we can add a feature like this that would allow metrics expansion for scenarios. So very similar with PyTest, right? When you use parameterize. So we can implement something similar to allow you to see parameters for scenarios and list them. So just, I only want to run this one. It's like I want to run scenario 1 with SSL, let's say.
Yeah.
It is doable. I think it's doable and it's not very hard to implement.
Because right now I have the only ways to pass it through environmental variables and then pass it to like playbook
And this will work very well with Talk Sensible and with PyTest Ansible that is discovering the test, because if you declare this in the metadata, okay, this has these options, it will just explode it. Because it is the same scenario, it's just a trick on exposing different ways of calling it in the UI. But I would say the first thing I would want to do, ensure that when I do molecule list, I can see them. It's about discovery. It's like parameterized scenarios, I would call the future. Coming to call management. Okay, thank you.